Welcome to Moving Mattresses in 3-inch heels, celebrating women and the many hats and shoes they wear. Here we will dive into the ups and downs of womanhood with humor, heart, and wisdom, empowering you every step of the way. I'm Julia Jordan, and I'm thrilled to partner with you on this journey. Now you may be asking yourself, what the heck does moving mattresses in 3-inch heels mean? Well, it's literal. I was literally moving a mattress in 3-inch heels, my favorite pair no less. And I came to the realization that not only can women do anything, we do everything. We're going to focus on 5 pillars: metabolism, meditation, mental health, menopause, and I would be remiss if I didn't add the 5th, medical. It occurred to me when I was putting these metrics together, all 5 of the words do something that most women do not, and that is start with M-E. Start with me. So I'm going to amend my previous statement. Women can do anything, and we do everything, except prioritize ourselves. But it's time to. It's time for us to start with me. If you're ready to laugh, learn, and leap into a healthier, happier you, hit that subscribe button and join our wellness family. Let's go on this journey together of self-consideration as we discover how to start with me. Welcome to Moving Mattresses in 3-inch heels. I'm your host, Julia Jordan. Today's episode is Harnessing Our Hormones for a Healthier, Happier Life with Brie Wieselman. Hi, Brie.
Hi. Hey, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Let me tell you a little bit about Brie. Brie is a licensed primary care provider and CEO of the Reverse Age Method, a groundbreaking anti-aging program for women over 35. And we will definitely talk about that. For the past 14 years, she has paved the way for quality functional care, working with thousands of clients across the globe, empowering them with a personalized map for understanding and transforming their health. Besides being an expert in hormone balance, fertility optimization, and anti-aging, she specializes in helping people heal digestive problems to rebuild a bulletproof microbiome. Brie is also a much sought-after speaker on all of these topics. Welcome, Brie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am so glad that you're here. I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation. It's finally being talked about, and I love that. You focus on perimenopause. And I think that is so important that women understand menopause while they're in perimenopause, because it's a bumpy transition and it's bumpy to be in it if you didn't know this stuff already. And so what you do is help women be proactive and be prepared physically, but not just physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So we can move into the next stage of life. Brie, you talk about harnessing hormones, and you're great at explaining the how, the what, and the why of the challenge, but you're also great about explaining the how, the why, and the what of the solution. Um, and you give me hope because you teach us that we can actually get our hormones to work for us rather than we're working for them. And we don't actually have to be at their mercy.
Yeah. We have so much choice right now. I mean, just everything you just said, I just need to back up and say
Yeah.
amen. Yes, hormones are having a moment. Perimenopause and menopause awareness is having a moment. We've had, Jada Pinkett Smith stand up with lawmaker lobbyists. And I mean, it's unfortunate that praise her for using her platform for that. It's unfortunate that we need that, right? Why we
Right.
don't need fame. We shouldn't need fame when this issue is impacting, 3 to 4 billion people on the planet by the year
Yeah.
30. And really, this has been one of those blind spotted areas of wellness and health, right?
It just makes me happy that there's people like that, like you out there. And like you said, Jada Pinkett Smith, and there are celebrities lending their voice. There's some prominent doctors that are getting out there too and lending their voice. And I think in the past, and I get why, celebrities didn't talk about it because their career would disappear. Because we're not allowed to talk about menopause. Well, what's happening with it? We didn't kill a puppy. I mean, it's just, can we talk about it? Um, and so, yeah, like you said, it's having a moment, it's starting a movement. And I think it is wonderful. And was thinking about me being back in my 30s. And, um, I look at someone like Taylor Swift, and the only reason I bring her up is because she's 34. And
Mhm.
34 was a significant age for me. And I think it is for a lot of women. I think it's the first time in our lives where we're finally, thankfully, not in our 20s. Um, and we have some accomplishment under our belt. I think we know ourselves better than we've ever known ourselves before. And we got the world by the ass, or at least we think we do. And sometimes that's enough, just thinking that we do.
That'll
I
get you
mean,
pretty
whether
far.
yeah, it really does. And whether we did or not, who knows? Taylor definitely does. She's killing it, and I
Yeah.
love it. And I
Oh,
think
love
women,
that.
yeah, I do. And I think women, regardless of our age, a lot of us love what she's doing. But it makes me think back to when I was 34, and I would say maybe 34 to 37, I was like in the prime of my life, at least physically. I
Yeah.
mean, like I had washboard abs. It was ridiculous. But like, when I look back on it, I don't think, God, what I would give to look like that again. I think, God, what I would give to feel like that again.
And also, like, and I'll just add to that sentence and know what I
Yeah,
know now.
yeah,
And know what I know now, right? Because I mean, yeah, like I can totally relate to that. 34 was such a pivot point, I think, psychospiritually, emotionally, all the things you said. But also
yeah,
there's this like all of a sudden you're now aware that like, oh, I need to make some choices about what I want and don't want. That there's this biological clock thing. If we haven't already, decided one way or the other about what we want to do about children or, that kind of stuff, you kind
right.
of it becomes more immediate or present, right? And so there's this way that it does that can be very empowering because we have to make, some choices one way or the other about things. And also we're in that kind of like prime moment where, we've, like you said, got the world by the butt. And, I mean, so there's so much to say about that. And what's interesting is that actually a lot of the patients and clients that I'm seeing who are like in their early 30s are actually in perimenopause. Like perimenopause is getting younger and younger. And we don't even, that's not on the radar at all. But I am running labs and correlating that with symptom and health issues in women as young as 32 because of endocrine disrupting hormones in the environment and how we've normalized a baseline level of stress. And the combination of the stress hormones with the environmental impact, I believe, on our genetics in utero as they express, the ones that have to do with reproduction, but also just the exposure over a lifetime. We are seeing women now in perimenopause at like 32, 33, 34. It's not uncommon. So this isn't like that one off case and people have no idea. And women are coming in with
No,
sleep disruption and anxiety and like a little bit of weight creeping on where they're like, I eat clean, I work out, and those are the things that we tend to see as first. Those are the first things that signify
signs, yeah.
perimenopause that people don't even really know that that's perimenopause. But,
Mm,
because those aren't correlated necessarily in their mind. But I'm seeing women start to complain of those things and say, hey, this is impacting my life at, 34. So, um, really, this
Well,
is a bigger conversation.
it is, and you think it doesn't affect women under 35, but it is. I'm wondering, um,
Yeah.
girls get their periods sooner now, like
Yeah.
10, 11. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I was like 13 and a half or something. I mean, so they're getting it younger. So would that make sense that they're going
I
into
believe so.
perimenopause younger?
Yeah. Yeah. I believe so. I absolutely think there's a huge environmental role, right? That's the epigenetics of things. There's the epigenetics of choice, the actions of lifestyle and exposure that we choose, how we take
Yeah.
care of our health, how we eat, organic or not, if we are able to do that, how we move our bodies. All of those things are epigenetic, how much time we spend barefoot on the earth, etc. But there's the epigenetics that we don't get to choose, that are out of our
Right.
control because we just breathe air and we're out in the world and we touch things and you know what I mean? So yeah, I do think that that's all having an impact. It's having a huge impact on weight and obesity. Like, so it's interesting because I don't like to fixate on weight. I don't like numbers on scales, but I do like, but something I just need to be, if we're just going to be honest, I'm working with a
Yes.
population of women where one of the issues that happens with hormones is that we start to have metabolic shifts unless we meet it with what our body's asking for. And that does take some intentional effort and choice. Um, but what happens is that we tend to become, as our estrogen levels decline and as our progesterone levels decline, we become less sensitive to our own insulin and we have a harder time burning carbs for energy. And this can, impact the mitochondrial efficiency and lead to accelerated aging, but it can also lead to weight gain or just redistribution of body fat. And so, what one thing I like to mention is that it's not just the hormones, because it's not like this has always been as big of an issue as it is now. If you look anywhere in people talking about perimenopause or menopause, the things that are targeted in the marketing that shows up in your social feed are going to be like, um, you know, like be there for your kids, have the energy and brain clarity that you want, get your sleep back, and then wait. Right? Weight gain. Those are the things that are like the top three that are marketed for. And that's because those are very common. I just did a whole series on how menopause is actually a phase of acquired neurodiversity. And I was talking about it in relevance to ADHD because I have severe ADHD. And so my
Yeah.
strategies for how I work with my body in perimenopause with that are different than what I had to do before. But neurodiversity is like a change in how our brain operates and how we see the world. And there are definitely some things about that that can be challenging, like the brain fog if it's not handled. But
Yeah.
there's also an intentional reason that we shift our perspective, right? This is this opportunity where we are moving out of the phase where we are caretaking and focusing all our attention on, ostensibly little children or building a career or whatever it is that needed all our attention or the village, and moving into this realm of healthy selfish a little bit, and again, these are a spectrum, they're balanced, but it's like, hey, refocusing in on I've gotten this far, I've done all this work to build all these things in my life, I've made some choices, and like you said, kind of
Yes.
some things have been figured out or solved or decided, and what do I want now? And with the energy that I have now, who gets my energy? Who gets my time? We're so much more discerning. So, and there's all these hormonal parallels. Like if we dissect all of the ways that the hormones interact with our neurotransmitters, our serotonin and dopamine, and all of those things, there's kind of like, I think some of it is by design, and I also
Yeah.
think that some of it
Sure.
can get skewed when we're really out of balance and cause
Mhm.
problems and not feel good.
Maybe it's the upside of aging is like we really don't give a, F bomb.
Exactly.
So and it may be like, partly partly just our shift.
Yeah.
You know, everything you just said gave me like 900 questions. Let me try to like
Yeah.
grab some. Um, to start with, you were talking about women being concerned about their weight and being dropped in an alien body, and I am right there with them.
Yeah.
10 pounds just showed up, doesn't want to go away, loves me way too much. So and I know I'm on the low end, so I don't complain about it, but it's still my clothes don't fit either.
You're allowed to
Um,
complain about it.
but
Doesn't have to be pound for it
okay,
to matter to you.
okay. But you talk about metabolic flexibility, and you were
Yeah.
touching on that when you were
Wow.
talking about how our bodies create energy, and you said in perimenopause, we need to train our bodies to burn fuel differently as we go into
Wow.
menopause. So can you talk about that? Because I think it's really a really important point.
That is so fascinating. So there's a whole bunch. I'm going to try and keep it really simple because
Hmm.
there's a lot of moving parts all at once, right? Women's
Yeah.
hormones are this incredible symphony. So there's these, I'll back up a second, say that there's basically four hormonal stages of menopause or perimenopause. The first stage is going to be characterized by a decline in progesterone, and that maintains for the rest of, for ongoing, right? So what happens first is our progesterone goes down. And then the next phase is progesterone is low, while estrogen, which had been staying normal or high even, will do this roller coaster thing. It's puberty in reverse, right? So basically, when our bodies
Oh,
start, when we're teens and our hypothalamus and pituitary start talking to the ovaries and going, hey, go,
right.
go. um, yeah, it's erratic. That whole
Yes.
exchange and dialogue is like, teens don't like to listen very much. I'm just kidding.
They
But
don't?
anyway, you know what I'm saying. So it makes sense.
No, I do.
And, I know you know. Ovaries are like, wait, what? You're talking to me? Okay, cool. So basically, there's this maybe anywhere from 2 to 10 years where it's just this like crazy crashes and surges of estrogen as our body is trying to figure out what the dialogue is trying to get us to do in a
Yeah.
coordinated way. And so that'll
Okay.
show up as like heavy bleeding or kind of periods that are erratic at first in terms of the time between them. It can really show up as mood swings, right? Um,
Yeah.
in our teens, we have less prefrontal cortex development. And so maybe that shows up behaviorally, hopefully in different ways than it does in our 40s. But it's essentially the same thing in reverse. Our ovaries are starting to like not listen, quiet quitting, but not fully yet. So like we have spikes of estrogen and then low estrogen. And that's why the symptoms can be all over the place. And you'll be like, well, 1 month I had this horrible PMS and my boobs were sore and swollen. And the next month it was like it came, I didn't even know it was coming. So that will just happen, which also I need to point out makes it extremely difficult to put a huge amount of weight in any form of testing for hormones during this period of time. And that's actually something else I
Yeah.
want to revisit. There's another reason I want to mention that's a lot of people haven't heard about. But one reason is that the testing can be one data point or a couple data points, but it's just we can't say that this is how life is with your hormones if we test them during this phase. We can get some general ideas and trends, but we have to remember that it's going to be a reflection of that day and not a reflection of next week or next month necessarily. Um, the third stage is where the estrogen starts to decline. So progesterone is low, but now estrogen's getting low. And then the fourth stage is actual menopause, where both hormones are going to be consistently low and we are no longer cycling. So those four
Yeah.
phases are very predictable in pretty much all women. And so there's a connection between our estrogen levels and how this is happening in the mitochondria are able to metabolize sugars and carbs into energy. And so what happens is that our cells, in order to avoid all those symptoms, have to switch from burning glucose to being able to burn ketones from fats or made by our own body in order to have enough energy. And that requires a certain degree of metabolic flexibility. So if our cells all over the body and especially the brain are able to both use carbs and use ketones for energy, then the symptoms are like more minimal and usually temporary. Um, but if our body is already in a state where we are not easily metabolically flexible, it's going to have a harder time adapting to a whole body insulin resistance and probably will also have more hot flashes and night sweats. And in the literature, you'll see a correlation between hot flashes and insulin surges.
How do we teach our bodies to actually burn the ketones? I think you were talking about like more fatty foods, like maybe salmon, or is it just a
Mhm.
shift in our dietary approach or
Yeah, there's a number of things. And so it's a shift in, okay, and this is basically what my whole system is built on because in order for our bodies to stay metabolically flexible, there's like kind of
Mhm.
like four ingredients we need. I'm going to say five. So there's hormone balance. So we need to be addressing the hormones. You can be doing the best work or the best approach for you with the perfect nutrition and exercise routines. And
Yeah.
it's still not going to have that backbone of, hey, I have hormone adequacy to support this, right? Those changes I just talked about are still going to happen. So we
Mhm.
have to be addressing hormones if we're really trying to prevent disease and stay metabolically flexible. The
Right.
second thing we have to do is look at the body systems that make or break our hormone balance, because it's one thing to like address hormones in different ways or just say, hey, I want to start some body identical hormones or, that's great and necessary. But also, what? So here's something I was going to talk about is that when I was talking about the testing, another reason why testing is a flawed means of evaluating someone's hormone world, if that's the
Mhm.
only thing we're using, is that there's a piece we can't see. So
Yeah.
the effect of hormones in our tissues has to do with how much hormone's around, but really it's about how much hormone fits into the receptor sites.
Okay.
So you can have picture perfect hormones. Your doctor says your hormone levels are normal. And you can check off my little hormone symptom list and be like red flags all over the place for low estrogen, low progesterone, whatever it is. And there's a couple of predictable reasons why. Number one, if we don't have the right nutrient cofactors, those hormones can't fit into the receptor sites. These are things like zinc and iodine, and there's several other nutrients that are key factors. Number two, if your body is full of endocrine disrupting hormones from plastics and environmental chemicals, those will preferentially, they're stronger than our hormones and they will dock in those receptor sites and block our hormones.
Mhm.
So that's number
Yeah.
two. For we cannot measure that. We can't measure how effective our receptor sites are, how much hormone they're taking up. And then
Mhm.
another piece is that our own hormones can block our sex hormones from their receptor sites. So if we have high cortisol from stress or inflammation,
Yeah.
our body, cortisol is like required to stay alive. So there's a hierarchy of priority in the mind of our
Mhm.
body. When our body sees high cortisol, it goes, "Oh, emergency state. We gotta make sure you have enough cortisol for whatever the heck is going on out there in the world." So
Right.
plug your cortisol into those receptor sites ahead of anything like thyroid or estrogen. And then the third section, I kind of put gut and detox into my clear. That's clear. So there's balance, clear, and empower. And empower is about supporting our mitochondria. There's ways to do that with lifestyle and with nutrients and making sure we can even measure and test, but making sure those mitochondria are actually functional and working and supporting them. And then another kind of co-part of that is muscle as medicine. So basically the hallmarks of longevity in all the studies are how much DHEA we have and how much muscle mass we have. That's it. There's
Okay.
a couple other things, but those are the ones that repeatedly show up. And muscle mass is something that we need to build and can build at any age and that we need to sustain. Most of our mitochondria live in our muscle, and that is because we use mitochondria to make energy. And where do we use the most energy? In muscle, right? When we're doing work.
Yes.
The more we're working out and building muscle, the more mitochondria we're building. The more mitochondria we have, the more metabolically flexible we are. And by definition, the slower we age. So,
Can I ask you the mitochondria? Because one of the symptoms I have of menopause is my muscles are weaker.
yeah.
Um, and it's very strange because I've always been very athletic, very strong. And I find myself really like lifting something that I wouldn't have thought twice of
Yeah.
a year ago affects me. So,
Mm.
and I know I'm not the only one, and I know that it is having to do with low estrogen and being in menopause. So, which I didn't know before until I started doing research. But anyway,
Yeah.
but anyway, can we stay there a minute? Like,
Yeah. Like,
how do
about
we
that.
build
Yeah.
our muscle mass? Like, what are some things that we
Yeah.
can do?
Well, yeah. So number one is I always look at like, are the hormones supporting this? Because there's a bidirectional street between mitochondria and hormones. We need the
Hmm.
mitochondria to build the hormones and also to keep the hormones, balanced. But we also need adequacy of hormones to support mitochondria. I'm a big fan of hormone replacement when people are noticing their mitochondrial energy go down, because without it, there's no way to get it back up to what it was.
Hmm.
Hormones basically are, when we're young, we have a lot of hormones and we have high tissue function and less disease. And so basically hormones help keep our tissues in that state. So that's one option is hormone replacement will definitely help that when it's appropriately done. The second thing is progressive overload lifting, which means that you consistently have to be challenging the muscle to either lift something heavier than you did before or more reps than you did before. So the moment that the weight you're doing gets pretty easy to do, let's say you were doing, you know, 10 reps, you either need to bump it up to 12 reps or you
Okay.
need to make your weight higher. So that's number two. And number three is creatine. I'm a big, big fan of creatine for women in peri and postmenopause. The data on it is amazing. There's really no downsides. When you start creatine, it can make you retain just a tiny bit of water, but that should go away within like 2 weeks. And we're talking like 1 to 5 pounds max,
Okay.
and it should
And at
just,
this point, what's the difference, right?
well, and it's not, and it's
A
not
couple
like
more
its
cups.
own end things. So like, this is
Yeah,
subtle.
but it may start. It may be a reaction.
But
Okay.
yeah, it could be a reaction. And what it's going to do is it really gives you the resources for your muscles to have the endurance to do more energy and also to grow a little bit.
Hmm.
Right. And then the other thing, I'm sorry, there is one more thing. I lied. It's not.
No, keep going.
But
This
the
is
other
important.
thing is really, really, so one of the things I do is teach women how to eat to reprogram their metabolism and work with what their body's wanting. And there's a lot, it's not that complicated, but it's more than I want to like deep dive into. But
Sure.
basically the overview, like the high level view of that is adequacy of protein based on your body weight and activity level, which most people are not actually hitting.
Hmm.
And then the second piece of that is quantity of carbohydrates and when we eat them during the day relative to night and morning and relative to when we do our activity level. And so, for example, when women are struggling with like having their carbs give us energy. That's what we use carbs for is energy, especially, for our body to do things, including muscle.
Hmm.
So I will have women make sure that they're eating a little bit of carb before they work out. Working out fasted is a strategy for many reasons postmenopausally. But if you are having a hard time with muscle endurance or muscle strength, I don't think it's the best approach at that moment. So we
Okay.
want to have a little bit of carbs before you work out, and then we want to refuel the muscle to grow it. That's when we actually want, this is getting very biochem, but basically
No,
we
keep
want a
going.
little bit of insulin spike after we eat, a tiny
Yeah,
bit, not like go eat
I see.
but like,
Yeah.
this is why a lot of people will throw a half a banana in their shake or a cup of blueberries or like eat something a little starchy after a workout with protein, because that's when your muscles can really use it to refuel. And so it's going to help them grow. Insulin is trophic, but if we're directing the glucose to where it's actually going to be used, then that's the muscle at that moment.
Eh,
After about a 2-hour window after you've lifted heavy, it's not going to do the same thing.
Okay. So do it like immediately after.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we have insulin for a reason. I mean, it turns on
Yeah.
us if it doesn't, but everything we in our
Oh,
bodies
yeah.
is there for a reason. So you're explaining how to use it properly. And I think
Mhm.
that's really important. Can we go back to hormone replacement therapy for a
Yeah.
few
Let's talk
minutes?
something. Yeah.
Because
What time you got?
I mean, but here's the thing, like,
Yeah.
it's an option for a lot of women and it helps women, but it's
Wow.
also for some women, it's not an option whether they don't want it to be or it can't
Why?
be.
Why would
I
it?
don't know.
Yeah. Why would it can't
Yeah,
be an option?
because someone doesn't want it, they have an adverse reaction to it. I mean, so I'm
Okay.
just wondering, are there
Okay. Okay.
alternatives? So maybe if
Yeah.
you wanna start about the benefits of hormone replacement
Oh,
therapy and then maybe
yeah.
some suggestions of as far as maybe alternatives if that's not a road someone's gonna choose.
The short story, and there's so much more to discuss in this, is that while in the US we stopped using hormone replacement largely, or it got shifted to this thing that we use for the shortest amount of time, waiting until someone's just about to hit menopause and having, hot flashes and night sweats. And it was used as a treatment for just that symptom with total neglect for all of the other benefits that these hormones have been shown to have, like preventing and reversing bone loss, preventing and reversing the 34% of our brain mass that will potentially, that we will lose as we get older after without the hormones. Um, and lowering rates of cancers and improving outcomes and so on and so forth, just improving quality of life for women because those are just disease states, but it also helps, prevent the slide into insulin resistance or prediabetes, diabetes, helps mitigate weight gain and body composition shift. And also, I think more importantly, it just keeps our emotions, mood, focus, like that feeling of who we are and our ability to have those like good positive brain chemicals going, to the places they're intended to go. Right. So basically, what we see is a slowing of aging, prevention of disease, and increase in longevity in all of the most recent studies when we do
Mhm.
hormone replacement. I could keep going about the benefits, but they're myriad, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that they're very safe.
Can we talk about your reverse age method? It's a groundbreaking program that you created. What is it? Who is
Yeah.
it for?
Yeah. So this is a program for anybody who is really 35 and up, although I won't turn someone away if they're 32 and having these symptoms.
Right.
And it's a perimenopause focused program. It's not for only women who haven't been in menopause, though. I have plenty of women older than that, who are like, "Hey, I'm 65. Can I do this?" Yes, it's a standalone system that is just meant to help us age as healthfully, disease free, and with increased wealth span and play span, right? And so, what I'm doing is I help women use lab testing to assess what I call the 3 anti-aging body systems. So, balance, clear, and empower, which I talked about before,
Yeah.
hormone, gut and detox, mitochondria. And simultaneously, they work with my nutritionist and personal trainer, who herself is a bodybuilding professional who is also like 10 months postpartum. And she knows women's bodies age 18 to 80 and how to work with a lot of different women. So together, we personalize programs of treatment for the short term. So the program is currently, there's a 6-month version and there's a year-long master program for people who want to deeper dive into even more advanced anti-aging. We're teaching people a long-term system but we are doing intensive short-term work to reprogram those body systems so that they get the results in terms of change of hormonal symptoms and going through perimenopause and menopause feeling as like good as they can. And we actually do a lab test that's reflective of cellular age at the beginning and at the end to really show that what we're doing is meaningfully shifting the age that our cells are operating at and think they are.
And this is something that can be done remotely. It's not something that has to be done in person,
Oh,
right? So you talk to
yeah.
probably people all over the country, all over the world.
I have women in Australia in the program right now and one in the EU. And yeah, I've regularly in my private one-on-one practice, which I still have, work with
Mhm.
people to some degree internationally, a little bit less these days, but definitely all over the US.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about Brie and the programs she offers, we will have all her information listed in the show notes, including links to her website and social media. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was a really helpful conversation, very educational, and I think empowering too. And it lets women know, we're not alone. We're all going through this, and we're here for each other. So I appreciate you taking the time. This is really, really informative. Thank you, Brie.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me today on Moving Mattresses and 3-inch Heels. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest tips for living your best life. Until next time, stay fabulous, and remember, your wellness journey matters. Self-care is a necessity, and it does not require an apology. I'll see you soon.